Jody Steger, Mayor of Waupun. With me is Jeff Berry, our Chief of Fire Department, and Dale Herring, our Police Chief. And we're just here to inform you on some of the things that have happened during the past week with the flooding in the Waupun area.
Most of this problems that we've recently experienced started on Wednesday afternoon, about 4 o'clock, I believe. We received an enormous amount of rain, and there's actually flooding in the streets where they had to barricade the streets off and different areas, and that wasn't so bad. The water had receded by 10 o'clock that evening, but the continued rain led into more problems with the raising of the river. It peaked on Friday afternoon at approximately 8 foot 3 inches. Presently we're down to 5 feet 4 inches, which is flood stage is at 6 foot. We didn't have any houses that were actually flooded due to the Rock River flooding. Our problem here seemed to be more of groundwater rising up into basements, and then the sanitary sewer system filled up with groundwater from people putting it into the system, and it backed up so they couldn't handle the water, and then there was sewage back up into many houses. Right now we have approximately 144 houses that have been reported, roughly 72 in each county, Dodge and Fond du Lac County. City being in 2 counties, you have to report them separate. The phone calls still continue coming in. We were fortunate enough to have the Salvation Army and Red Cross donate roughly 100 kits of cleanup. Right now we have given out 75 of them so far for the people that had to clean up their basements from the sanitary sewer backup. And I think we'll turn it over to Dale to brief a little bit about the flooding list.
With the police department's end of the flooding problems, we had several streets that were closed for a period of time. At this point, we still have one street that is still closed on Gateway Drive by Home and Auto Sales. That'll probably be closed for a couple of more days if the river continues to go down. The main problem we had in some areas with the flooding was with the people driving too fast through some of the deep puddles, causing waves going up against houses over the curbs. And we also had some problems with some of the people as far as spectating going around the community and driving in areas where they probably shouldn't have been. To take care of some of that, we did put up some barricades. The officers did make several traffic stops and talk to people about going around barricades. There was also a couple instances where they wrote tickets to people for going around the barricades in dangerous areas. We had the Fond du Lac Street Bridge closed. Department of Transportation actually closed the bridge. They were concerned about the water level striking the bridge, and also the air pockets under the bridge having the potential of moving the bridge itself. Even at that point, when we had the road closed, cars still continued to go around the barricades. So that was somewhat of a problem. As far as the safety of the community, I think everyone was quite safe. Emergency services were activated right away. Fire Chief Berry is also our emergency government director. We got the ball rolling with the fire department, emergency services through Dodge and Fond du Lac County and the state if we needed more assistance. Mainly in Waupun here, I would say we had quite a bit of damage. The main thing was in residential areas. We had some road damage by the mill pond itself, where we had some erosion, where Department of Public Works is taking care of that. But safety in general, I think we went through this pretty good. The fire department did have some fire calls. Maybe you could talk about that a little bit. Those are quite interesting.
Unfortunately, when you have flooding in the basement, you have electrical problems, and people could smell electrical shorting out in the basement. We did have a call for that. We had an area where a hot water heater was actually flooded, and the natural gas is burning on top of the water in the basement, which could have led, if it wasn't taken care of in a quick hurry, could have led to actual fire of a house or explosion possible. So there's other things to consider when they have flooding in the basement. Sometimes you need to call the utilities if you hear electrical and have them check out the electrical part of it, or Line Energy for the gas. It's very important if you have that kind of flooding to have this done immediately before this leads into the situation that we had in these three different places.
I think kind of the long-term cleanup too, people should be aware of that. As Fire Chief Berry explained, he had some cleanup kits for people that had sewage backup in their basement. A lot of the basements that I observed didn't have raw sewage in them. It was very diluted from the clear water getting into the sanitary system. But all those areas, anything that water touched should be disinfected and cleaned up in some way. It will have some type of bacteria on it. And I think a lot of people aren't aware of that. They're just drying things out and putting it back in the basement. And that could create a problem for them in the future. They have to be sure and disinfect everything and clean it up very thoroughly. That it could be a health hazard.
I think as far as safety-wise, our community was in really good hands. On Wednesday night, Chief Berry had me sign a state of emergency so that we could activate Red Cross and Salvation Army. By Thursday evening, they were already setting up in Jefferson School for anybody needed to evacuate their homes. There was a shelter for them to go to, and as they said, the Salvation Army brought in the bleaching kits, and they would have been available for any feeding if people had to stay, for a longer term of time. But with the help of the municipal well and pump, they brought in some high-powered equipment from Stevens Point area, and that helped bring down the water level going into the water plant, so we wouldn't have increased flooding at coming into people's home with raw sewage, and combined with those 3 pumps and our fire department bringing out their pumpers. I don't know what else you would call them, but they would pump out at different interceptors around town, and that helped bring our level down. And by 10 p.m. or 9 p.m. Friday evening, they had brought the level down to a safe level, where they didn't have to continue to have people on call throughout the whole week. Well, they were on call all weekend, but they didn't have to be at the station and taking care of the pumpers continually. They had brought it down to a safe level. So all these men came in from the fire department. Our volunteers came in without even being called. They came in and volunteered their time and asked where they could be used to help. And I think this community really pulls together when there's a problem, and it was amazing to see everything pull together and go so smoothly within all the departments of the city.
The teamwork was unbelievable.
Yes.
We had the meeting at 10 o'clock on Friday morning of where we were at and where we're going to go with this. We were expecting more rain, and I can't say enough the way the utilities, DPW, fire, police, the city officials, and all the volunteer service like Red Cross, Salvation Army, people that volunteered to call in to say we can help sandbag, we can help with this, what can we do and stuff. So we started making a list of all these in case we'd need them. And like she said, they did set up. We had 2 requests for evacuation, which people's basements were actually starting to collapse, I believe, and it ended up they didn't need the service, but it was there if it was needed, and if it would have gotten any worse, we would have had it available for them. And once again, I can't say enough that the way the cooperation between everybody went to help mitigate the problems. I think we all learned some things from this, some things we need to look at for future mitigation, not so much our emergency service, but what we can do to stop the flooding. I mean, we can't shut the water off, we know that, but when it rains, like we had 1.5 inches of rain last night, you can see if we get 4 or 5 days, we can absorb that without having a problem due to the system, the way it's set up. So hopefully we can get some dry weather and go back to normal life again.
It's been anything but that this year. I think everything else is, as long as we don't get any other rain. And one of the questions people have asked is what that trench was next to the dam. And it's been in the papers, but the DPW crew did put a trench area in there to help relieve some of the water pressure, so that it would relieve some of the dam concerns, so that wouldn't go on us. For a while there, we had water coming on both sides of the end of the trail statue, which was quite scary. So
I think it was Friday, there was a lady from the DNR. Her title was some type of a hydrologist. She was checking our dam to make sure it was secure, that it wasn't in danger. And the dam itself was never in danger. But one of the things that she liked was that ditch that they had actually cut in there to relieve some of the pressure. And they also had a plan that if we had more rain, several inches more rain, to cut another ditch to the north of the statue and have it drain down towards the Madison Street Bridge. So some of the things that people came up with to take care of the problem were kind of innovative and took care of the problem efficiently.
Mm-hmm.
Last thing is safety, probably. I'm gonna let Jody talk on this, of the children and stuff.
Yeah, I was really concerned with the kids. They're captivated by the rushing water and the rising waters, and for the most part, I think parents did a pretty good job trying to keep their kids up. There was a couple of areas where, they would be, just a couple of feet away from rushing water, and if one of them would have gotten in that flow, they would have been taken downstream fast. There wouldn't have been anybody who would have been able to grab them fast enough. That's a real concern for me. We can't replace a life. And when this happens, I think we have to rely on the parents in this community to know where their kids are.
Also, the drainage factor in some areas with the culverts, tremendous volume of water going through culverts. If someone gets in that area, there's a strong possibility of being pulled underwater and into the culvert. People should be aware of that also. So we haven't had a tragedy like that in Waupun, but several years ago in Fond du Lac, they had 2 deaths related to that.
It takes a second to slip on the edge and be in the water.
It was especially bad, I thought, up by the statue, by the end of the trail statue there. That is where I seen a couple of young people messing with their bikes and awful close, and that was really concerning to me. But
Very interesting, but dangerous.
I think the police did a good job of driving around and keeping people out of it. I've seen them move many people, kids away from the flowing water and away from the dam and stuff, so good joint effort.
I guess that's about it. That brings us
That sums
pretty
it
much
up.
up to today, where we are, and just keep monitoring. Hopefully we won't get another 1.5 inches today, or maybe get some more nice weather. It sounds like the weekend's gonna be nice, so we're keeping our fingers crossed that everything will stay safe in the community and people will be able to get everything cleaned up from the past storm. That's about it.
Okay.